Hello, my name is Professor John Benjamin, and I'm going to introduce you to Premiere. So the first thing you do once you open up Premiere is, if your interface doesn't look like mine, then go to Window, Workspace, and you can select all panels. That should usually typically work, or you can reset it. The next step you want to do is collect your footage into the project panel right here. So I'm going to go ahead and look for where I've located my footage. All right, and here it all is. A little bit too much, I think. But I'm just going to select all of it anyhow. And just drag that right into my project panel. And there you have it. Now the next thing I can do is, you notice if I select my project panel, it's outlined in blue. If I hit the tilde on my keyboard, that will maximize this. And so here I'm going to separate this footage into bins. So I'm going to make a bin right here. I'm going to call this one audio. And then I'm going to make another bin. I'm going to call it A-roll. And another bin, calling it B-roll. And then finally, stills. All right, so I have a lot of still photographs here. I'm going to move those first. Just going to drag those into the still folder. All right, and I only have one piece of A-roll, and that's my interview here with Dr. Murphy. So I'm going to drag that into the A-roll folder. All right, I've got some duplicates here I'm going to delete. But here is some B-roll footage. I'll move that into the B-roll folder. Lots of B-roll. Here's my audio. And then here's another still photo. Okay, everything's nice and organized into bins. I'm going to hit my tilde, which will shrink that project panel back down to here. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start this project by placing my A-roll. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my A-roll folder. I just have this one piece of video. I'm going to drag that into my timeline. And the next thing I'm going to do is review this a little bit. I'm going to use my J, K, and L keys.
Of faculty, staff, and students who care about justice in terms of how do we restore people to community. There's a lot in our culture that's about punitive justice and retributive justice. We care about justice that addresses harm, for sure.
All right, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to hit M for a marker. I'm just going to go ahead and trim that clip all the way down to that marker. All right, now the next clip I'm going to bring in is my audio that I recorded using my Zoom recorder. So that's in the audio file here. I'm just going to drag that right onto there. And now I'm going to zoom in, because there's two segments to my audio. Here's the first segment, and here's my closing segment. So I'm going to separate those two. And you can see by the waveform here, if I make this a little larger, that there's a gap in the waveform. And that's where I'm silent, where I pause before I have my closing remarks. So now I'm going to go to my eraser tool here, and I'm just going to cut it right there. Then I go back to my selection tool, and now I can click on that piece of audio and move it over. All right, so then I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. And what I want to do is I want to put Dr. Murphy's interview right about here. And so here, if we play this little clip right here. Students work with Dr. Murphy to create the center, hoping to address harm that comes to minorities.
Community of faculty, staff.
And there you have it. There's my audio where I'm summarizing the interview, and then I have this closing statement here. Okay, so right now I've got an interview that looks like it's a little bit more than 1/3, and so I'm going to try to fill the other 2/3 in with B-roll. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's go to our B-roll folder. I want to start out with some sort of exposition B-roll, so I'm going to go ahead and do this drone shot of the chapel. And if you click on this little bit here, link selection, if you click on that so it's white, then you can click on the audio and delete it. So the drone doesn't have any audio, so I'm just getting rid of that bit. And I'm going to trim this and bring that right about there to video 1. And let's review that. All right, so that's some good sort of exposition, where are we? But actually, I might even put right before that clip, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit, is I have a still image of the college, so people know right where we are, without a doubt. There's a little sign from the college. So we're going to start off with that. So here I have the sign, and then the drone footage. And then I'm going to move into, let's see what I'm saying here.
Deborah Murphy is the director. Dr. Murphy told Channel 22 News that the center began in response to several...
So what I'm going to do now is, I think I'm going to actually put in another piece of A-roll before I put in a still. I'm sorry, B-roll, pardon me. Something where students are just talking. Right, I'm going to get rid of that audio. And I'm just going to trim that a little bit. And then I think right here I start to talk about the actual students. So I'm going to go ahead and I have some still photos to work from the actual center. So I'm going to go back to stills, and I'm going to start with this photo. You can see it there. And then I'm going to move into this photo here. And then I'm going to end with this photo. And so I need to fill up a little bit more space. These are actually probably a little long. So I'm probably going to sneak in a little more B-roll footage, like right about there. I think this one looks... I've already used that one. Here, this one looks good. All right, and I can scrub that, and you can see what we have.
West Virginia Wesleyan College has created a new center for restorative justice. Dr. Deborah Murphy is the director. Dr. Murphy told Channel 22 News that the center began in response to several incidents on campus where certain people and communities were singled out.
So actually right off the bat, I think I really want to start off with something more CRJ, so I'm going to swap those out. Make this a little smaller. And make these a little longer. All right. Now, the first thing you'll notice here is this particular photo is too small. And let's see, this one looks like it's just fine. So here I'm going to go ahead and scale this. I can do this under my effects controls. If you don't see the effects controls here, you can go to Window and look for effects controls right there, and it should pop up if you click on that. And you can see here I have a scale. Right now it's at 100%. I'm just going to scale it up so it fills the screen. And I'm going to go a little bit more. I'm going to 230% because the next thing I want to do is I want to animate it. So I still photos next to video are kind of a little too still, if you will. And so we're going to go ahead and add a little animation to this. It's sometimes referred to as the Ken Burns effect. So with my cursor at the beginning of the clip, like right about here, I can go ahead and now hit this little stopwatch. And then I can move this to the end of the clip. Oops, pardon me, I went too far. Right about there. And I can hit this little button, which creates another keyframe. And then from that point, I'm just going to scale it up just a little bit. Tiny, tiny bit, really, really incremental. And so now if we play that back through, you can see there's just a slight movement of the photo, which makes it a little more dynamic. All right, here we have a piece of footage that's a little too large. So again, I'm just going to scale that down. All right, then let's zoom out a bit. All right, so now see we've got lots of B-roll as I'm beginning my interview, which is this audio here. And then it's going to transition into Dr. Murphy's interview. Now, one of the things we're going to do right away is we're going to need to transition the sound a little. So let's play that through. Oh, pardon me.
comes to minorities.
Community of
So we kind of jump there because the way the clip starts out. So what I want to do is I want to fade that in. So I'm going to come up here to my effects, and then I'm going to look for audio transitions, crossfade, and I'm going to drag a continuous gain right in the beginning here. So now if I play that back,
To minorities.
community of faculty, staff, and students who care about
all right, and now let's look at the audio bar here.
justice in terms of how do we
Occasionally, Dr. Murphy's voice goes up to 0, which is in the red. So typically, the human hearing, we want to keep it at minus 12 to minus 6 decibels. So we're going to have to turn her volume down just a little. So what I'm going to do is come back over here to my effects control panel. I'm going to click on the audio, and then here we're going to have the level as decibels. So I'm just going to turn Dr. Deborah Murphy down just a little, and I can scrub it down, maybe like minus 6. So let's see how that is.
faculty, staff, and students.
And then you can see how it matches with my audio.
To address harm that comes to minorities.
Community of faculty, staff, and students.
And now they're a little bit closer. Okay, so that's good. Now I'm going to have to actually add another fade, audio contrast gain at the end here. So I'm going to drag that to the end. And lastly, I'm going to have to add some more B-roll to finish up the piece. So I think I'm going to have this students walking away clip here, which seems appropriate because it's sort of the end of the clip. So and then I'll do a cross dissolve from Dr. Murphy to those students. So now I'm going to come up here and do my video transitions and cross dissolve, and I'm going to put that right between the two. All right, so let's see how that looks.
Addresses harm for sure.
The center holds weekly meetings and roundtables to discuss these issues. This is John Benjamin reporting for Channel 22 News.
All right, so the last thing I'm going to do is a dip to black, which is under here under dissolve. I'll put that right in that last piece of video so we can see here. It'll dip to
22
black.
News.
And that's essentially it. Although there's one more piece that we need to do. We need to add some titles, in this case, lower thirds, over Dr. Murphy so that people watching will know who this is. All right, so I'm going to put my cursor over Dr. Murphy's interview video here. I'm going to click on Effects to close it up, and I'm going to go down to Essential Graphics and Browse. And if you scroll down here, there's some standard lower third graphics that are just come with Premiere. And you really can choose any of those. I would choose something really, really basic. I think we're going to do the 2-line. All right, so I'm going to drag that on to V2, right above Dr. Murphy here. Okay, and you can see that we've got some text right there, and I can just double click on it and say Dr. Deborah Murphy. Be sure to spell the names right, and then here we'll put her title. So Professor of Religious Studies. And I'll just put WVWC. All right, I think that looks fine. And then it pops in, so it's already got a little bit of animation to it. Probably stay in there a little bit longer. So we'll play that through.
Faculty, staff, and students who care about justice in terms of how do we restore people to community.
And then our video is complete and ready to export. So the important thing to note is I'm going to come back out here, go to up a folder, and when we first dragged on the A roll, Adobe Premiere created a sequence for us, and it would have put it in that A roll folder. So if I open that up, you can see here here's the MP4, and then here is my sequence. And you can see if I roll over it says sequence. Now you can move that outside into its own folder, which is typically what we'll do. But the important thing that I want you to know is in order to export, Premiere is going to export whatever you have selected. And see here, as I scrub this is my whole video. And you can tell it's a sequence also by the little sequence icon. So you have to have that selected before you export. If I just click on this, it'll only export that. So I need to export this sequence. So now with it selected, I'll say File and Export Media. All right, make sure it has a good title, Dr. Murphy. I would probably call this CRJ. interview, and then put my name on it. And then make sure you know where it's going. So this is the folder where I want it to go, but just double check that. That's where I want it to be. And match source is typically good. And always you need to export an H.264, which is the codec for an MP4. So you have several codecs to choose from. I really need you to export an H.264. Great. And just go ahead and hit export. All right. And then just go and check that folder. And here I should have interview, CRJ interview John Benjamin. So let's go ahead and open that to see how it looks.
West Virginia Wesleyan College has created a new center for restorative justice that they believe to be unjust. 2 years later, these same students...
And there you have it. There's your MP4. It's ready to be broadcast onto the nightly news. All right. Thank you and good luck.